Okay, I'm back. I haven't done any changes. My ice tree layout view is still active here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out from that view. What I'm going to do is go back to view, layouts, and switch back to my default layout. So why did I do that? Well, me personally in my workflow, I enjoy working with the ice tree as a separate floating window. I personally don't like it to be attached to my viewports here. You can have it that way if you like, or you can do it with a free floating window, whatever works for you. I prefer a free floating window, and to do that, it's pretty easy. Just hit Alt and 9 on the keyboard, and that'll open up this floating ice tree window, which you can resize, you can tuck it away, or do whatever you want to it. I personally prefer to work this way, and that's how I'm going to work for the duration of this tutorial. Alright, so let me close that ice tree. How do we create an ice tree? Well, before you can do that, you have to understand what exactly an ice tree is. Well, it's pretty simple. An ice tree is a series of nodes that are connected together in a specific way to create some kind of an effect that you'll see here in your exercise scene. Now, the ice tree has to be, these nodes have to be connected with an ice tree node to a specific object. Now, the type of objects that are supported with ice in exercise 7 there's many of them. If we go over here to the primitive menu, I'll quickly go through a list of some of the objects that are supported. You can attach ice effects to nulls, to curves, even polygon meshes and NURB surfaces. And these new point clouds, which weren't here before exercise 7, can be used to go ahead and emit ice particle effects and things like that. So, let's go ahead and close that menu. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to create your first ever ice tree effect. So how can we do that? Well, the first thing that we need some kind of object to go ahead and attach the ice effect to. I'm going to maximize this viewport by hitting F12 on the keyboard here. And what I need is some kind of an object. In this case, I'll go to the primitive menu and I'll pull up a polygon mesh object. And I can go with any of these objects here. I'm simply going to go with a disk. Okay, so I'll close the PPG for the disk. There's my disk. Before I do anything else, one thing I want to be certain of is down here. I want to go back to the first frame of this animation because we're going to have to play the animation to be able to see the ice particle effect. If not, we won't be able to see it. Now, with this disk selected, it's very easy to create an ice tree for it. Over here in the Simulate toolbar, you'll notice that there's this ice menu, which is new, of course, to exercise 7. We'll go to the Create button and click on Emit Particles from Selection. Once we do that, exercise 7 automatically goes ahead and attaches what's known as a point cloud to the object. Let's close that PPG. I'm going to open up and explore by hitting 8 on the keyboard. And what you'll see here, besides the obvious, of course, which is a list of all the objects in the scene, here's your disk, and here's that point cloud that we created. So what's a point cloud? Well, the point cloud is basically the particles themselves. Okay, so the point cloud is actually the actual particles, and we can actually select the point cloud simply by clicking on it. Now, you can't see the point cloud in the viewport. That's because at frame 1 down here in the timeline, the particles have not simulated yet. If we go ahead and move ahead by a few frames here by playing the timeline, hitting the play button, you'll notice that now particles are emitted after frame 1, of course. And this is the point cloud here. Point clouds can be selected just like any other object in XSI. They work just like any other object in XSI. They can be deformed, they can be moved around. You can do a lot of things with point clouds, and we'll get into that throughout this entire tutorial, so don't worry about that for now. Now, with this point cloud selected, let's go ahead and open up its ice tree to see what's going on. We'll hit Alt and the 9 key on the keyboard to open up an ice tree floating window. And I like to move it up here and resize it so I could see this better. Okay, to navigate in this ice tree view, we can hold down the S key, and then we can use the left mouse button to drag around. We can also use the middle mouse button to go ahead and zoom in and out. Another quick way of zooming in and out is with the mouse scrolling wheel. You can just scroll back and forth and zoom in and out, which is a new feature in exercise 7. Okay, we can also go ahead and hit A on the keyboard to frame in on everything, or we can select a specific node like this blue get disk node up there and hit F on the keyboard to frame in on that specific node. So I'll hit A to frame in on everything. So here's our ice tree. This green node is the main execution node. This is the terminal node where everything is connected to, and that's what makes everything work at the end. That's what brings up these final results, which is of course these little yellow particles emitting in our scene. Then we have a few other nodes. This node up here, to get disk node, simply tells the ice tree what object is emitting the particles here. In this case, this disk down here. Okay, this blue simulate particles node down here, what it does, it basically is telling the entire system to simulate at every frame. Without this node, the particles simply would not simulate. And then we have this tan or brown node here called the emit from surface node. This was created automatically by XSI when we clicked on this button over here that said create emit particles from selection. And this node is what determines a lot of the characteristics and different parameters that affect the look and the type of simulation that we see here with these little yellow particles. So we can actually double click on this node to open up its PPG. And you see from here we can change all kinds of things. We can change the rate of particles, so we can add more particles or less. We can change the size of the particles as well as their mass and weight. We can also change the color of the particles, so we can make them green, for example. And to see the changes, we have to go back to the first frame in the simulation. And then what we have to do is play again. And you notice now that the particles are green. We can also change the shape of the particles here, so we can switch from points, which is what they're on as default. That's why they look like little dots. And we can change them to all kinds of different shapes. We can change them to discs. We can change them to little boxes, spheres, and lots of other things. And we'll get into that later. We won't go over all these parameters. Trust me, you'll get a good dose of that for the duration of this tutorial. But we'll skip that for now. So that's how to create your own ice tree, your very first ice tree in XSI, your very first ice effect. I know it's nothing grand to look at, and there's nothing special about this, but that's what this tutorial is for. Now that you know how to go ahead and create an ice tree system on an object, or a particle emission on an object using ice, we can move on to the next video and get deeper into the anatomy of an ice tree and what makes an ice tree tick, what makes it work. So we'll do that in the next video.